Hi, so this is my overview of Button Man, but I'm also going to do another overview because it's got a connection, and that's of Maze World. Basically, it's more of a look at the amazing artwork of Arthur Ranson. This is an artist who's been around, I think, since the late 60s. He started off in like a lot of the UK comics like Lookin', um, TV action. I think he did like a lot of series based on popular TV shows, like in the 70s, for example, Sapphire and Steel. And he's got a very, very photorealistic art style. Just to give you an example. For some reason, he's never really taken off in America. He's always been predominantly UK based. He did a fantastic strip years and years ago, what Rebellion have collected, which is the Beatles' life story. Well worth checking out. But we're going to focus on these two books from 2000 AD. I think the first one we'll do is Maze World, because I've not finished Button Man yet. It is good, but I've been distracted by other things. But Maze World I've read, and it's written by Alan Grant, who unfortunately passed away in 2022. Oh, it's a bit damaged. And like I said, it's drawn by Arthur Ranson. I mean, the cover itself is enough to draw you in. But the synopsis says lose yourself in a tale of epic fantasy. 30 years after the British Parliament suspended the death penalty, the gallows have returned, and Adam Cadman finds himself being the first person to be hanged since 1964. But as his life drains away, Adam is transported to a strange new dimension populated by warriors and mystical beasts, the bizarre maze world. For me, it gives me the same kind of vibe as I used to be a huge fantasy book reader back in the 80s, and it reminds me of the Thomas Covenant Chronicles by, is it Stephen Lawhead? Not Stephen Lawhead, is it? Stephen O'Donnellson. Where somebody's transported from our world, where the very, very mortal, like in Thomas Covenant was a leper, and in this guy's basically been given a death sentence. And so when he comes to this world, he becomes this. He becomes this man called the Hooded Man, I think, because he has a hood on over his face because he's going to be hanged in our world. But in this one, he becomes this character called the Hooded Man, and he can't take the hood off. As he's trying to here. And Maze World is basically this world where everybody's fighting to survive, and there's seemingly no way out of this world. Like I said, it's a maze world. But just look at this artwork. It's the most photorealistic artwork you can get. But it's photorealistic in a very different way to, say, for example, another British artist, Brian Bolland. What I like about this, there's some kind of grittiness to it, what you don't get in a lot of realist artists. An artist who I think is very similar to this is Richard Piers Rayner, who again you don't hear of much now. He did the History of Violence and quite a few Hellraiser comics. He did his own Strange Haven as well, his own comic. But yeah, I do recommend this story. The writing, surprisingly, is a bit dated, even though it's not that long ago it's written. I don't think it's some of Alan Grant's strongest writing, and the dialogue's a bit clunky, but the story beats are really good. I mean, I finished it within a day, I think. So it did draw me in, but it's worth buying just for yours alone. But like I said, the story is very engaging, and it does keep you guessing to the end where it's going to end up. Because like I said, on our world, he's about to be hanged, so is he actually dead on our world? Is this world some kind of like purgatory? I don't think... Yeah, I won't go to the back because it'll give away the ending. I'll show you some of the posters from various issues of 2000 AD that this was in. So this is Mazeworld, still readily available either from Amazon, Barnes & Noble or 2000 AD online.com, and it's a good read. Like I said, it's Alan Grant, can't go wrong with him, he's a good storyteller. Some of the dialogue, like I said, does get a bit clunky, a bit exposition-y, but it doesn't detract from the enjoyment of the story, unlike, say, Claremont does on, especially his late stuff, say with the X-Men. A minute? Yes. I've got to finish off my rum. I'm just having one tonight. Don't get drunk after Christmas. And so we move on to the main feature, which is Button Man. Now this chunky book, as you can see, it's quite a big book, and collects 3 books of Button Man, which all feature Arthur Ranson's artwork, and it's written by John Wagner, who should have won loads of awards, but he always gets overlooked. I mean, he's the guy who basically is Judge Dredd. He created Judge Dredd. So this collects 3 books of Button Man. There's been a 4th one which features his, I don't want to say because it'll give it away, but it's in the world of Button Man. But it's not Arthur Ranson, so I've not picked it up. I most will do eventually, maybe when it comes out at a reduced price. But for the time being, I'm ploughing through. It's about halfway through because I've had so many comics come through over Christmas and different things. I've just not had time to really sit down. This does need your attention because just basically to soak up the artwork as much as the story. But I'll read out the synopsis. It says, the world seems to need a man like Harry Exton anymore, an ex-soldier and mercenary. Harry was a human killing machine without a vocation until an old colleague told him about the game. The players known as Button Men are paid to fight to the death in a modern-day gladiatorial contest organised by mysterious backers known as Voices. The killing game offers bountiful rewards, financial rewards if you live. Harry decides to participate, but soon discovers that death offers the only way out. So it's kind of like, the vibe I get from this is, remember the old 70s Michael Caine film, Get Carter? It reminds me of the vibe of classic British 70s gangster films like Get Carter, mixed with the Hunger Games. And this was written before the Hunger Games. This was written back in the 90s. And it's just so cool. It's ice cold. John Wagner just knows how to, even Judge Dredd, even though it's set in the future, it's when John Wagner writes it, it becomes a really gritty and warish crime book, really. And this is the vibe that you get from this. Like I said, I could imagine Guy Ritchie reading this, wishing he could direct a film as good as this book is. But the artwork is just breathtaking. And like I said, the whole world, it drops you into the world, but then slowly opens up to the world. So you're exploring with Harry. It's like your eyes are getting open to this world that he's involved in. And there's so many cool characters in it, because like I said, he's one of these like modern day gladiators. What's a gladiator? One of these modern day gladiators fighting other gladiators, and it's not in like enclosed environments. It's across the country, so they could be it could be in a farmer's field, just go for a walk, or suddenly this other gladiator appears, and Button Man, and he's got to take him out, or he gets taken out. So you're constantly looking over your shoulder. The only thing I think of in comics that has a similar vibe, but with a more modern update, because like I said, this was written before the internet became prevalent, is Absolution from AWA. It's got the same kind of beat, but it's not got this artwork. I mean, Mike Deodato's good, but he's no Arthur Ranson. Arthur Ranson, I mean, just look at that, just knows how to do, he can do talkie heads, he can do still moments, and then next thing you know, bam, he does a brilliant action shot like that, which just, what I like as well is John Wagner knows when to shut up. Like some right, especially a lot of American ones. Say for example, Tom King. They think that we're not intelligent enough to pick up the story beats if it's just got a picture. They've got to have a box of dialogue to explain what's going on with what you're seeing with the picture. But John Wagner doesn't do that. He only uses dialogue when it's necessary. I mean, the guy's been writing comics for close to 50 years now. So he's a master of the craft. In fact, these two, basically this is two veterans at the top of their game, producing a book that hasn't been surpassed. I'd say this is the last modern masterpiece from 2000 AD. There's been loads of good stuff from. I mean, we've now had things like Lawless from the Judge Dredd magazine and Brink and The Out. I'd say they're three of the new modern heavy hitters now. But I don't think they've reached this level yet. I'd say in a few years' time they'll get there. But this, it hits hard. It doesn't let up. There's never a dull chapter. It always makes you want to turn the page, which I was doing. But like I said, I've had to do things like comic, which anymore I've got comic wise, and I've got into. I decided to dig out my tablets and look at my old Comixology page what I had, and I've been basically reading a lot of the, just because it's good at night, you can turn on the lights off, go in bed, and I've just been reading on that. And recently managed to get hold of the Man of Steel Volume 1, the big chunky Man of Steel, but I got the digital format. It cost me £3, £3, which is about $4. And if you're buying a hardback, it's cost you, I know in the UK it's about £30, something like that. So that's my excuse. But I mean, look at this, like even snow scenes are just so good. He'd do a brilliant comic adaptation of Fargo, adaptation of Fargo. This couldn't work as an American comic because in the UK, this is more striking because in the UK we don't have the same laissez-faire attitude to guns. Guns aren't readily available. So if somebody's got a gun, it's a shock. It's oh my god, what, he's got a gun. I've never seen a gun. I've never had any experience of being threatened or confronted by somebody with a gun, and I should think I never will have. Nobody I know ever has. So guns are alien to the British culture. It's not something that we see or hear about every day. So this is why this works, because these are people who we would never see in real life. So this is why it stands out. Whereas if they did an American version, if this something like, if these guys turned up in an American, say for example in Texas, and they drew the guns, you'd have all the people living there drawing their guns as well against them. So it'd be like this big standoff. So it wouldn't have the same dramatic impact what this has. So everything about this just really, really works really well. Sorry, I've done well. I've not faffed about with my hair today, but yeah, it's just a masterclass in storytelling, and I'm just taking my time with it. I don't want to rush it. I want to savour it and enjoy it. So I'm reading it book by book. So I've read the first book. I'm going to read the second book next, and then I'll read the third book within here. I've never read the third book because I stopped 2000 AD for a little while, and because in the 90s there was a few good strips, but it went really naff in the early mid 90s. But it came back on track when Rebellion took over. So this is my way of catching up. Bit of a tip of the hat to Steve McQueen there with that bike scene. I'm sure they've cribbed from that. But it's just gorgeous. Let me see if there's any extras. Yeah, they've got some posters here. But this one, mazeworld, great. Yeah, buy that. But if you're going to have to choose one, get this one. And another one, because for Alan Grant and Arthur Ranson together, I would recommend Shambhala by Alan Grant and Arthur Ranson, which is a Judge Anderson book. Basically, It's Judge Anderson Takes on Satan. And it's superb. It's a fantastic read. I can't show you. I've just got it digitally. I've not got the physical copy of it. I used to have. But yeah, that's worth getting. But Button Man, you get a lot, literally bang for your buck in here. It's a gorgeous book. It's a great story. The dialogue and the arts just blend together perfectly. It's very organic how it flows, and it's one of the best books you'll read if you've never read it. If you read it this year, it'll be one of the best books you read this year. I can't recommend it highly enough. I mean, just look at this scene of a swamp. It's like up there with Tosserburn for that kind of detail. Everything is so detailed. Nothing's wasted. It's just a modern day classic. Yeah. So Butterman, highly recommend it. Like I said, if you like that, then I'd say try Judge Anderson Shambhala and then Mazeworld to get your Arthur Ranson fix. I think he did a Batman book years ago, but I think that's all he's done from the American market. So I'm really disorientated. I'm just looking at using my camera, and when I'm looking at it, it's weird. I'm trying to look focused, but for some reason, no. Anyway, that's me. Ignore me. So that's it. I do recommend to try. You'll be blown away by his artwork, and he's always with a good writer. Anything he's done, it's worth reading because he's never with a bad writer. So yeah, classic to get, and you might be able to get it at a reasonable price. At the moment with the January sales, it's worth checking out. Next up, I think will be next week. Might even be Sunday night. I'll do hopefully a comics haul. I've got a bunch of comics that'll be coming because of the Christmas period. There's been delays. So hopefully I'll get them this weekend, but it might be early next week. So depending when they come, I'll do a review. Okay, thanks. Bye. Bye.